and welcome to Rising. I had to halt taping to watch the trailer for the new Legend of Zelda game. I appreciate you putting up with that, Briahna.
I always have patience for your nerdy frolics and detours, Robby. They're my favorite thing about you.
Oh, well, thank you. All right, what's on the docket today?
Well, we've got a really excellent show for you today. A lot of big news yesterday. Senator Lindsey Graham introduced federal legislation that would ban abortion after 15 weeks. Nationwide, with exceptions only in the case of rape, incest, or if the pregnancy is endangering the life of the mother. Let's watch.
Here's what I think. I think we should have a law at the federal level that would say after 15 weeks, no abortion on demand, except in cases of rape, incest, to save the life of the mother. And that should be where America's at. And what would that mean if we adopted that position? The next chart. Where are the chart people? If we adopted my bill, our bill, we would be in the mainstream of most everybody else in the world.
The Wall Street Journal is out with new polling on the issue. 60% of voters said abortion should be legal in all or most cases, up from 55% in March. 29% said it should be illegal, except in the cases of rape, incest, and when the woman's life is endangered, compared to 30% in March, where just 6% said it should be illegal in all cases. And more polling shows that the Dobbs ruling has given an incentive for Democrat and independent voters to hit the polls come midterms. 83% of Democrats say they are more likely to vote, while 53% of independents responded similarly. And another poll showed that 62% opposed an abortion ban at 6 weeks of pregnancy, but only included an exception for the health of the mother. And 57% opposed a ban at 15 weeks with the same exception. Meanwhile, 77% opposed banning women from traveling to other states to seek out an abortion. And 81% were against banning all abortions. So it does seem like there is a ratcheting up here. Obviously, currently there's a viability line that most states have respected that sets limitations on getting an abortion at 22 to 24 weeks. Now we're talking about a 15-week ban, which was the object of the Dobbs ruling in the first instance. Lindsey Graham points to the fact that in many other countries in the world, there is, including in Europe, countries that we kind of see as peer parallel countries in terms of, democracy and, human rights and things like that, do have 15-week bans. But of course, part of the reason why we did have a longer tail in the Roe ruling, part of why the justices decided to have a viability line instead of a shorter timeline is because, unlike in those countries, it's harder for women in America to access health care because we don't have a universal system.
Yeah, I don't understand why Lindsey Graham brought this up at all. It seems like if you're looking at the polling, pretty clear that, and the change in just Republican fortunes over the last few weeks and months as a result of Dobbs, this is not an issue that voters want to be talked about, or rather, that voters don't want abortion restrictions. At the federal level, look, I think the 15-week ban and then further exceptions down the line, like Graham says, it's not an extreme policy. It's one other countries do have. But as I've said on other issues, I wouldn't put this in the federal government's hands. I would let states experiment with different policies and see which one people like best. It's clear that people don't have the level of support that you would want to see for this, universal across the board at the federal level. Like, don't bring this up. This seems like a very self-inflicted wound to bring this up, and it's not. But if you look at the polling, it's not popular enough. It has been in the past. You could get close to around a 50% support for something similar to this, allowing abortion in the first trimester, then having a cutoff around there with then some leeway later on. Again, I don't think that's a unreasonable policy, but no reason to do it at the federal level, and it's clear that since the Dobbs ruling, more people who might have previously been for that are saying, oh, wait a minute, I don't like what abortion enforcement actually looks like. What it would look like at the federal level would be even more of a disaster.
Yeah, I mean, states' rights, where is this gone? And I wonder about this polling question. So often when we talk about progressive policies, there's a rejoinder that, oh, it's not as popular as it seems. You know, people might say they like Medicare for all, but it depends on how you phrase the question and things like that. I wonder if sometimes when we ask people about whether or not they support abortion bans or would want to overturn Roe, there is this extent to which they are answering with the belief that it's not actually going to happen. They can kind of symbolically express a kind of conservative value without having to really reckon with the implications of what would happen if they won. And it does feel like the Republicans are in a situation now where they're the dog that caught the car. And it's not just that they don't know what to do with it, they're doubling down on chasing a car that's already kind of bashed them in the face. So
yeah, and I get that this was an important public policy win for conservatives. You can't promise your conservative base things and then just not give it to them over and over again. That's part of the reason the Republican base got so mad at the GOP establishment for so many years, feeling they were not getting the policies. Social conservatives, in particular, felt like they were getting lip service from the GOP.
I can relate.
Right, you can, and they were getting lip service. They were getting, even. And them wanting policies that I wouldn't necessarily support, but then the GOP is lying to them, saying, "Oh yes, we're on board. We're going to do all these socially conservative things that they were never going to do." So, given the opportunity to actually deliver on something, a substantial, not a substantial, maybe portion of the entire country, but a huge majority of the grassroots activist conservatives, something they have desperately wanted, the thing they want almost the most for decades, you had to give it to them and just deal with, from a tactical, strategic, party building standpoint, you had to give them that and just kind of suffer whatever short-term electoral consequences you're going to suffer. So I agree with that, but there's no reason to continue to do like what Lindsey Graham is doing here. So at the end of his press conference, a reporter asked him a very tough question about pregnancy complications and shared her own story. Let's watch.
Graham, what would you say to somebody like me who found out that their son had an anomaly that would make him incompatible life in 16 weeks? I had regular appointments, I did everything right, and at 16 weeks we found out that our son would likely not live. When he was born, he lived for 8 days. He bled from every orifice of his body, but we were allowed to make that choice for him. You would be robbing that choice from those women? What do you say to someone like me?
Here's what I would say. The world pretty much has spoken on this issue. The developed world has said at this stage into the pregnancy, the child feels pain, and we're saying we're going to join the rest of the world and not be like Iran. As to your particular case, there'll be exceptions for life of the mother and rape and incest. But
There are no exceptions in this bill.
well, ma'am, there were 55,000 abortions after the 15-week period. And I think we're resolved to get America back in line with the rest of the world. And we won't know where America is until we vote, until we debate. And so to my Democratic friends, you're going around calling all of us every name you can think of. We're a bunch of wackos. Your idea is wacko, not ours. Let's vote. Let's vote. Give me a chance to vote on this bill. We'll take her considerations and we'll vote. Now, I guarantee if we have a debate on the floor of the United States Senate where we can explain what we're doing versus what they would do, we'll do really well with the American people. And over time, God willing, we're going to be like the rest of the world and not like Iran at the federal level when it comes to abortion. We're going nowhere. Thank you very much.
Again, I don't think the policy, and I'm sure you disagree, but he is right that like a 15-week kind of cutoff is the norm in some of our peer countries. France, for instance, I think it's a 14-week cutoff. I think it is. He is right that is the sort of moderate policy, the moderate in between that other countries do. I just would let states experiment with it because I actually do believe in states' rights, and for contentious public policy questions where there are a wide range of opinions, where I myself have unsettled views about the subject, I would leave it to more local authorities to enact whatever the median will of the actual citizen of that state is?
So I think part of the issue is that there is suddenly an interest in what's going on in the other parts of the developed world, where they also have more in the terms of social safety supports and a healthcare system than American women actually have. And again, part of the reason why we have the longer time for people to go and get abortions, because the Supreme Court justices in the 1970s understood that it took American women longer to get health care because we don't have the same provisions. So if there's this interest in modeling the United States after much of the world, Scandinavia, et cetera, I say let's go whole hog. Let's have universal health care. Let's do what America is unique among developed nations and almost all nations in doing, and go ahead and sign on to the Universal Declaration, the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, which we don't sign on to because it requires we guarantee certain things like housing for kids that we won't do in this country as a human right. Moreover, I think that ultimately Graham is going to have to get past the reality that he has a woman in the audience telling him that she, at 16 weeks, doing everything that she was supposed to do with a wanted pregnancy, found out that her child was going to live a life of extreme pain in the short term, bleeding from every orifice, and that his ban would have prevented her from being able to make the choice of whether or not to terminate that pregnancy or not. And he looks her in the eyes, and all he can do is repeat this line about not wanting to be Iran. Well, a lot of people would think that articulating often considered to be a religious objection to having the right to terminate a pregnancy at an earlier time is imposing your religious views on the country in the way that is similar to Iran, not letting people freely in states make their own decisions.
All right, well, I can't wait to argue with you in your radar coming up next. Well, we don't know if it's an argue one.
We could completely agree about student debt.
Is it about The Legend of Zelda? Oh, it's about student debt. Never mind. Okay, let's do it. More Rising right after this.